Do you think we're going to see this same type of draft from them with no Guardians in it, only one Warrior, and it's in the support role, and Deathwalker never really gets to get as tanky as he likes?
I think that if Pittsburgh Knights have the option for the first pick, then what they're probably going to end up doing is maybe even looking to prioritize that Fafnir. I think that
get that away from
EmilZy
PBM.
wants that Fafnir, and I think Mike has also been having some really strong sets on it. It feels like ever since yesterday, he definitely warmed that bad boy up and hasn't really had too many difficulties being consistent with landing all the hammer stuns. Sometimes even finding last hits with them. I remember early on in this last game, there was a really nice play in mid lane where Mike dives the T1 tower and gets the last in hand.
That's right.
Last little bit that needed to kill Zyrhoes. And all those little picks early on, while they might not have seemed too devastating, they amounted to, I think, an experience, or there wasn't even really an experience, or a heavy gold lead, I should say.
No, they never, even though they had the kill lead, they never had a big lead. So eventually Rival were able to close it out. But Knights stuck with them. Can they keep that going here in the picks and bans for game number 3, though, is the question. It will be the Knights in that first pick selection that you wanted to see them in, Taco, which means that they'll have that first option, the right of first refusal, so to speak, I guess, on this Fafnir pick if they want to give that one over to Rival.
If I'm Rival, I think I might even just look to ban King Arthur and Bellona. Possibly
really?
Give
Leave
up
that Freya.
the opportunity for Freya, but I think that Arthur and Bellona, I say over the Freya just because I think that the Bellona is a big part of what Pittsburgh Knights needs in their compositions to really make those auto attack based compositions shine, because she provides so many protections off of the Eagles rallying and just has a lot of control by preventing the enemy team from responding with those same sort of moves. I mean, you can't really expect Arkyll to do nearly as well when he's having to worry about a Scourge disarming him.
Wow, a lot of thought about this second ban, Taco, from Pittsburgh Knights. And this is where the first pick really has some freedom, because they can kind of force Rival to ban the meta stuff since their second pick selection. And then the Knights can say, what is it about these last drafts that have been frustrating us? Is it the Najaj? Do they want to take that off the table? Do they not want that Erlong Shen to come back in from Twig? They can sort of just base it on what it was that's been played these last few games, whereas Rival are relegated to that spot of having to take out some of the stuff that's just a little too strong right now, as it absolutely is going to be the Erlong Shen.
Well, the thing about Rival, too, is that they just took the game by storm. They got the map pressure, and while there wasn't necessarily a massive gold or experience lead built up from all those kills they were finding, the team fights were still very clearly going typically into Rival's favor. And I think when you have that sort of presence on the map that is able to essentially choke point Pittsburgh Knights for Rival, then it just makes things so much easier for PandaCat, for Arkyll, I think. And that's probably going to be a similar thing that Rival are looking for here, is just continue focusing on that AoE denial.
Well, Najah will come through as the first pick for the Pittsburgh Knights. That means Fafnir certainly still hanging out there. Apwash was highly contested earlier. Shibalanke Fafnir would not be a bad first 2-pick selection either for Team Rival. But this Najah, Taco, it's still early in this draft. We don't know for sure, but you think we're seeing this with Fineokay again, or is EmilZy going to try and replicate some of that Game 1 magic he had?
I think it was better. If EmilZy's going to play an aggressive support, then I want to see him playing the Najah aggressively, because I'm not really feeling it when EmilZy goes for like the Fenrir's or the Achilles. It just seems like he kind of overestimates how much damage those gods
a bit, right?
really do in the early game, and that was kind of what happened in that secondary match here with Rival and the Achilles. He overstepped his boundaries, didn't really have much of an escape route because it was kind of, all in for the kill or be killed spectrum, and, well, Rival just took advantage of it.
Yeah, I like that PolarBearMike accidentally showed us the shooting sleeve tech just now. It accidentally made its way into frame on camera. Just, that's just one of those things that coincidentally can happen. But Shibalanke Fenrir comes through, so not the Fafnir this time. So question remains, will Pittsburgh Knights want to come back and snatch that up? Or will they allow it through and give Rival a chance to grab it before that second ban phase? But the Fenrir coming through as well. We saw this played by PBM, but he had kind of the same problem that we saw EmilZy have last game when PBM was on that Fenrir.
Yes, and if anything, I actually think that this is a pretty smart pick choice by Rival, because if it's going to be rounded out with the Najah as the clear support for Pittsburgh Knights, then I think I would prefer to see the Fenrir there to clash a little bit and kind of see how the assassin v assassin support method goes for both of these teams. And I think that will kind of stalemate things in the dual lane for both teams. But there is also some possibility that this Fenrir is just a flex pick between Twig, between Fineokay. Sure. I think that Fenrir being able to fulfill a solo support and jungle is something that Pittsburgh Knights might have a little bit of problems handling here.
Fineokay rounds out as well. They know exactly where that's going. As Rowe is working on some strategies back there for the squad. The coach for Pittsburgh Knights is trying to help them decide what they want to do with this last picks of this first phase. They'll get the second and third one in response. And now that Fenrir's been taken, the Fafnir, of course, is up in the air. But what about this Bologna? Do you want to go ahead and grab that for Deathwalker as well? It's been a strong pick for them. There's still plenty that's on the table as they lock in the Giannis in this first pick. And then it will be indeed the Bologna to make sure that Deathwalker's feeling comfortable, which means that Rival could come through and just grab that Fafnir.
It had to be Bologna. I think that Deathwalker has already displayed that he will almost always take this Bologna into the solo lane if left open, and Pittsburgh Knights were also in a position, I think, where they had to take the Bologna. Otherwise, Rival would have undoubtedly abandoned a third, fourth choice. But now it's up to Rival to decide, well, do we want to prioritize a possible pick selection here for Fineokay, or do we continue allowing Pittsburgh Knights to assume that this Fenrir could possibly be for him also?
That's right. They want to try and defend that flex potential, I would imagine, so that it can maintain that value throughout this next bit of the picks and ban phase. Oh, what about PandaCat as well? He's shown an eclectic god pool so far. I think Rival have a small benefit, which is that they can kind of wait on what they pick for this mid lane, because it's not as if Knights know. I mean, would you have banned Hobwa last game thinking that PandaCat was going to look much better on it? So they're in a nice position to where they can prioritize their support here if they want, or they can go ahead and grab the Zhang right here, right now.
Lots of protections, and I love seeing the Zhang Kui because I think it's going to pose a lot of issues for this Najah and Bologna that Pittsburgh Knights have opted for. Giannis, I don't ever really anticipate to really be in that much of a threatening position by Zhang Kui because he can just portal away into safety, but if Zyrhoes isn't perfect, I think, with every single through space in time, there is a very high likelihood, I feel, for Rival to just smother and collapse all the Pittsburgh Knights. Something that I maybe want to see from Pittsburgh Knights in response to this would possibly be bans towards the Artyll. And I think Artyll, because of the fact that she has that cripple lockdown effect.
Interesting.
And the Zhang Kui isn't necessarily for PandaCat, by the way. This could be for Fineokay also.
That's exactly what it looks like the Knights are thinking, that they're not guaranteed this Zhang Kui is going into the middle lane for PandaCat. And I think they're right to have this suspicion. That felt early to pick PandaCat's pick anyway, since just like I was just saying that there is some flex potential there for him and you're not exactly sure what he's going to grab. So now they're banning out two mages. They're convinced, Taco, that this is not the Zhang Kui in the middle lane, that this is absolutely going to be going over to Fineokay, and they're not going to let this sort of backdoor path stay open for them to pick still a big burst mage for PandaCat.
Well, Zhang Kui does have the interrupt for that Bologna bludgeon, so if it's Deathwalker on the Bologna, like we're all assuming it will be,
right?
Then I think that Deathwalker's going to have to prioritize leveling up the Scourge or that Shield Bash instead, and neither of those options are really going to allow for him to play as aggressive into Fineokay because Zhang Kui is going to have so much sustain from the card and just being able to continue building into his ultimate and re-sustaining essentially off of every creep wave.
Yeah, and this is a ban, technically, what's happening right now. It is a pick. Rival will be playing this Nemesis, but they don't want the Knights to have this one. It can be a very strong option to Zhang Kui, who relies on the extra tankiness that he gets from his passive and from the ultimate, and Nemesis kind of cuts through that. She sticks to him quite well. So they grab this for themselves. And is there still some flex potential? It's got to be Nemesis for Twig now, and that means the Fenrir likely moving over to support. Does this kind of contextualize everything for you?
I think anything aside from Nemesis for Twig would probably be a little bit of a misplay from Rival here.
Right.
I mean, the only thing I could possibly think of for it working otherwise is if this Nemesis is for Mike in the support role, and we see a support Nemesis. That is something that hasn't been done in quite some time, but it's definitely still within the realm of possibilities here. But I definitely feel like the Nem would probably be better faring for CaptainTwig, especially since the Zhang Kui is very likely headed into the hands of Fineokay.
Fafnir has finally come through, so we'll likely be seeing EmilZy on a proper tanky pick as Terra comes through as well. A very, very strong couple of last two picks in these Guardians to round out these drafts. But I'm loving this so far, Taco. I mean, this is about as exciting as pick ban phases can get to me because it's so back and forth. There was so much mystery into where these picks are going. Still, I think it hasn't been entirely crystallized. There's plenty of options. Fine could play Fenrir, Zhang Kui, Nemesis, or Terra, I feel like. So there's still a lot up in the air. We'll get a chance to find out exactly where everything's going, though, here in just a moment. Pittsburgh Knights up against Rivals. Caster, take it away.
Caster single, so you can get out of here.
Cool. See you later.
See you later. So Team Rival, looking at game number 2, is... I'm going to move over here. Looking at game number 2, had a little bit to really make up for Pittsburgh Knights. Knights looked really strong in game number 1, and then game number 2, they did exactly that. I think the real key here was that Rival kept their foot on the gas. They played aggressively. They drafted a composition to do just that. And here in game number 3, Pittsburgh Knights are looking to keep that at bay. You see the bands down there, Hebo gone, Achilles gone, Arlong Shen gone. These are a lot of the characters that are going to look to press W. So Rival respond with some Fenrir and some Nemesis that I think is going to get very exciting as the weeks go on. But is Rival as turned up as possible? Right now is usually when I would ask my co-commentator a question, but he left, so I'm just going to keep going. And as we get into this game, oof, Fineokay is going to dab not once but twice, and we'll see if he can get the performance he did in game number 2, not once but twice.
What?
And once again, joined on the call by Ryan Agrobale.
What just happened? I was out in the hallway, and then the power of Fineokay's dab teleported me back to the caster booth.
Sometimes it happens. And as we get ready for game number 3, allow me to introduce us to Doug LeBlanc, the man behind the camera, making us see everything and anything that we desire.
What's up, Doug? So you and I were talking a little bit during the picks and bans. I'm not going to get a chance to talk about it right now, am I? I am not, because this start is going on. Deathwalker, so normally Deathwalker has been going over and doing enemy red right off the bat. This time, I really like what Twig and PBM are doing. They're hiding, trying to convince the Pittsburgh Knights that they aren't here, but surprise, they are.
And also PandaCat, and also Fineokay. Deathwalker and EmilZy is a 2 versus 4. Fino doesn't have the runes, so won't find the stun. And EmilZy likely to get out of here as well, so a little bit rough there. Twig gets his speed.
Right, and Twig gets his speed, but Adapting got to 2-way split his speed instead of 4-way split his speed. That's absolutely a win. PandaCat misses out on farm and mid. This is a win for the Pittsburgh Knights, and this is where that sort of adaptation to whatever anyone else was doing ends up working out really well for the Pittsburgh Knights, because Rival goes, okay, well, we'll catch them off guard a little bit. They'll expect us on speed, so they won't do it, but they were doing speed because I think they were expecting that. So nice option there by the Pittsburgh Knights. But what I was saying was, during picks and bans, I think that right now, second pick seems super unfavored because you're basically forced, quote unquote, to ban King Arthur Freya because can't let those through, right?
Big quote, end quote, by the way.
Right. But Adapting in some trouble.
Going for the early oracles, and that's the reason why he's in trouble. They're really hard to kill at this point.
Naja, one of the better junglers at killing
Agreed.
them, though, to be fair. But if I'm second pick right now, I think instead of doing what we've seen both teams in this set do in second pick, which is ban King Arthur, then ban Freya, if you lead on a ban that isn't King Arthur or Freya, you're putting the enemy team in a situation where they're either going to have to give you one or the other, though they will get the first choice between Arthur and Freya,
sure,
or they have to ban it, one of those two, whichever one they don't want, and then you get to just ban the other one anyways.
EmilZy body blocked, and I love the Terra play there. I love the Terra play there coming out from PolarBearMike. Doesn't immediately slam for the stun. They just deal some damage while the target is stuck in there and body block him in, and then as soon as it looks like the player can escape, smash come the walls, the latest stun possible. Really like that control from PBM. That gives Team Rival first blood and gets them up. And I see what you're saying. You're basically playing a game of chicken. We're going, all right, well, we're not going to ban them either if you're just going to throw away your first 2 bans, so pick one and we get the other.
Right, the Achilles, Arlong, Shen first 2 bans are throwaway bans by Pittsburgh Knights. Sure, those are gods that are good, but...
And they've been working well, sure.
Right, but
yeah,
they just want to not ban the best gods because they're in the commanding position. I think that teams, and we saw it yesterday as well, I just think that teams are giving... And this is a situation where we've had multiple times in Smite's competitive history, where there are 2 gods that feel far stronger than everybody else. I don't know why in this particular instance teams are so scared of giving up one or the other. The only reason is that you'd feel like one is, King Arthur, even if we get Freya, is so much better. But I don't think that's the case. I think that you can trade those and have a chance to win pretty easily.
Realistically, we've seen some attempts at dealing with King Arthur, Ardio, the Kamazots with teamfight characters. I like those ideas. CaptainTwig beads. Get away from that. The Freya, also, as long as the game doesn't go an hour long, I think you can deal with Freya. She's very strong, of course, but I think you can deal. I'd be willing to see some of the more powerful characters kind of jump out. And realistically, what I think, Aggro, is that in these best-of-5 sets, I think it's more likely that we see one of those characters sink their way into the match, Game 4, Game 5, as some of the more popular characters in this best-of-5. We always talk about the mini-meta that's created in these series.
Right.
Game 4 and 5, I think we have more of a propensity to see some of those characters.
PandaCat going for the build that I was hoping for on the Hobwa last game on the Zhang Kui this time around, rushing the Bancroft's Talon.
Love it.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Like I said, I like Bancrofts on characters that are going to get in there and really get their hands dirty. Zhang Kui certainly does that. I do think that rushing Spear of the Magus is so important on him that usually when I'm playing Zhang, I go Mage's Blessing Magic Focus 1 in order to try and get Spear as fast as possible because that's the best way to up my damage consistently. But I don't mind this Bancroft rush. I just hope that PandaCat will elect to position aggressively. Well, might not be a choice by him. It just kind of happens for him.
It's just part of his DNA.
Right.
And again, a character that I'm happy about. I'm going to talk about Rival's identity a lot because I think that's what wins or loses them games. And PandaCat on the fat guy right here, I think is definitely a very different character from Hobwa, but the same mentality, as in, I'm going to walk at you, and you got to walk away from me.
That's right. And I love it in conjunction with the Terra, because Terra brings so much additional CC, and Terra's Blessing is all about hitting the enemy multiple times to proc the extra damage. All Zhang Kui does is hit you multiple times, whether it's the card or on the ultimate. So I think these two pairing together is very, very intelligent.
And a shout out to Coach Slaney, whoever is behind the picks and bans here, because I think that this is also you're sticking with the aggressive mentality of what won you game number 2, but you're showing a different side of it. Last time with the Hebo and the Circuit, it was very pick oriented. Let's get a guy and shove him in the ground and fight a 4-on-5. Here, this is the team fight. This is the team fight variant of the pure aggressive strategy. And if it works out for Team Rival, I think this is very important for them, expanding their repertoire.
Zyrhoes actually fires off that ultimate just to make sure that he and EmilZy are going to be safe. Portal must have been on cooldown, so he decides to play it on the safe end.
I like that call too, because when you look at PandaCat's got the ultimate here at level 6, and you've got CaptainTwig there with the protection shred as well. I mean, that is at least one kill, if not both. That seems like an itchy trigger finger for Zyrhoes. I actually think it was very, very necessary.
I wonder where PandaCat's going to go with his second relic in this game. I really feel like Blink Zhang is really, really potent, and it's kind of comp dependent, but I think this is a really good one to pull it off with. Particularly, I'm looking at when the enemy ADC is either a mobile or mage is a mobile, or they have one slow or easily readable leap, and Ullr fits that on both ends, really. You can follow him pretty easily over a wall with the blink. It takes him a little bit to get it off, so even if you blink in and throw your card on him, he needs to beads, then jump away, and that's often still a death sentence if he has to switch stance on top of that. So I'd love to see PandaCat go with the blink this time around.
It's very interesting watching the PandaCat's choice here. I like the idea of sprint as well. Obviously, a little bit of technical difficulty here. Spectator exclusive, so we're going to come back here. But players still playing as usual. When I look at the Zhang Kui, I want to ask you the question about sprint, perhaps. I think there's a lot of slows that are on the side of the opposition, and sprint Zhang Kui versus blink Zhang Kui, similar ideas.
Sure, but you don't get to close the gap nearly as well.
Right.
It's really more of a defensive option. And if you're going defensive second relic, I think Aegis is just going to be better for you.
Well, I'm just thinking of Zhang Kui just sprinting down the lane, like looking for it.
Sure, but leaps get you over walls, and sprint won't help you chase
point.
them over the walls. Whereas blink, as long as you're really cognizant of when you're putting your dots on enemies, if you just run at them, use your 2 to force them up and over the wall, then you get to easily blink after them and chase them down with the card and the ultimate. I just am kind of a fan of blink Zhang Kui right now. But in this particular game, Aegis could also be really beneficial. The dot damage from Fafnir is not irrelevant, so you could really use your Aegis to stop some of that damage over time, get Deathwalker off of you for a little bit longer. Those sorts of things would be very helpful.
I'm with you on the blink, though, because, again, I think staying aggressive is going to be paramount to Rival finding their victories. So we got to see how that's going to work out. We're in the early stages of the third game of our contest so far. So what we did go through some technical difficulties as far as the spectators concerned. Players still battling it out. Rival tied up here with the Pittsburgh Knights. With respect to how Game 2 went, do you expect that to be as aggressive and as successful in Game 3 for Rival?
Yeah, I think the Rival's composition is still very much the same. It's an aggressive assassin in the solo lane, this time with Fenrir instead of Serket. It's still a god that can really run at you very well. The mid lane and Zhonghui instead of the Habwa. PolarBearMike still playing something pretty aggressive with the Terra.
Yeah.
It has a little bit more built-in defense, I'd say, for the later game. I think their overall team fight is probably a little bit stronger than it was in game number 2, but I think that they could still jump out to a really strong lead like they did in the previous game.
What I am worried about, though, is the Naja in the jungle. A pure aggressive assassin Naja can be scary. To make our way through this break, we're going to go toss to the desk and see what John Finch has to say.
We're trying to get everything taken care of for you, so don't worry too bad, everybody out there in chat land. We're handling up here on the desk, Finch and Taco. I make sure everything's going. My understanding, the players are still doing just fine and still rocking and rolling, so we'll be working on our end. But I liked the way that Rival played this picks and bans. We were talking about this backstage, right, that it looks like Rival don't really have any kind of tell or any kind of tendencies in these picks and bans, and I think that helped them get a really strong team here.
And like we were discussing, I think Terra is probably the only pick that Rival have shown any tendencies towards wanting to put a lot of prevalence into that pick selection, just largely probably because they saw what Variety was doing with Terra, and they're like, hey, we can do that also, and we realize that, Terra has a lot of value to her, especially at a competitive level where there's comms and synergy involved. But something that I think that Rival played really well throughout that picks bans phase was that Zhonghui, because it's something that I think everybody knows Fineokay loves to rock in the solo lane. I mean, I even got a little bit debated myself by seeing that Zhonghui in that third pick selection, and I wouldn't be surprised if Rival had been hovering or toying around with the idea of possibly giving that to Fineokay for the Bologna matchup, because it's not an awful matchup either in that solo lane, but I think that PandaCat was just really valuing the amount of protections he would have for himself in the mid lane. It kind of prevents adapting from doing adapting things in the early game.
I think so too. I like that they have that sort of flexibility. It's already netted them the first blood in favor of this nemesis for CaptainTwig, so I'm glad that he's looking comfortable on it already as well. They just have to make sure they can keep this momentum going. In game 1, or rather game 2, their first victory, what they were able to do well was that they had that early pressure and they never let up on it. They never got that far away in terms of gold or experience or anything like that. What they did well was they kept invading the bus, they kept on the pressure, they were almost doubled up in kills. They've got to try and keep that same recipe going here in game 3.
And I don't even think that it's necessarily Rival like slowing down or Pittsburgh Knights, awfully misplaying or anything like that. These have been some very back and forth team fighting interactions between these guys. But I think in game 2, right at the very end, as Rival was sealing the deal on their Dia side, that was without a doubt the most clean team fighting we have seen from Rival in all of the games that they have played so far. And I know that, obviously they've only had 2 sets to work with. So, I mean, how many team fights can you really witness? But I just definitely think that was the first time in a long time where we really saw this team having the similar target focus, having the proper breakdown of the separation or the 3v2 staggering. And it's interesting because I don't think that Rival has had a whole lot of time to get things together. I mean, you make your roster, you solidify things, but with all the craziness that was involved with the preseason interactions and stuff leading up to Season 6 now, I think that for these teams to already be displaying so much synergy as is, the move-in situation seems to have definitely helped them out.
I think so too. That's what they were telling me when I was talking to them, is that, they've had some time to work together, but when they were scrimming, and some of them were here and some of them were overseas, it wasn't maybe the best practice. So in terms of all together playing on the same, ping and everything, and really being able to get those synergies between like hunter, support, jungle, mid, they haven't had maybe as much as everyone else, but it's harder and harder for me to tell that they had that struggle. The more they've been able to practice, the more they've been able to learn on the fly, the better this Rival team is looking to me. This is scary. Everyone else was 3-0 until we got to this one, Taco.
Yeah, it's never an easy time to decide on all of these things, especially when you're trying to decide, am I really going to be down to live with this guy for like a year and some change and, ride things out, see how they go.
Would you want to move in with the casting team, Taco? Could you handle that?
I think I can handle that. It'd be like college all over again, honestly.
I guess that's true. It might be a little bit like that experience. I do want to apologize that we weren't able to bring you all the end of that last game. If there is any good news to it, though, it did end up being a short one. Ended about 23 minutes in, and we were able to go in and watch the games as well, so we can tell you all a bit about what happened in that one. Right around when you all lost it, they were able to get a couple picks on the side of the Knights. They were able to go towards Gold Fury, start burning that right away, steal some objectives too. Really, for me, Taco, they were burning the objectives too quickly for Rival to ever have a chance.
Rival multiple times, because I was actually watching, getting the chance to watch from the Rival player booth, and they wanted to contest every single one of those objectives, but by the time they got there, it was almost always too late, or the objective was so low that it would have put Rival into a position where the fight after the fact would have just been really awkward. And the best example I can think of, which unfortunately we weren't able to bring you guys, Pittsburgh Knights actually went for a Fire Giant attempt.
Right,
and
that was
Rival
about 21
stole
minutes,
it.
22, yeah.
Yeah, it was a fantastic steal from Twig. Did a great job with the Nemesis, work his way in there and get the actual objective.
Right.
But afterwards, Rival went in for this fight that was just all over the place, and they were so incredibly low. And they stacked on each other as well. So it was like Arkyll, PandaCat, everybody in the back line all grouped up. And Ring Bounce just destroys protections in the back line. And then Deathwalker kind of just takes care of the rest.
Yeah, they ended up killing 4 people in that push, and as you can see, it was indeed Knights that came out on top in that game. They pushed down the right side, Phoenix in that at once in that siege too, just all the way down the right side. EmilZy stays behind, sacrifices himself, and they get the kill. They fall back, get the Oni Fury with those Oni waves pushing up. They push down mid. They do end up losing EmilZy in that push down mid as well. He gets picked, but then again, Rival kind of stuck around in a bad fight, and Deathwalker goes back in a really good initiation. Zyrhoes is nuts with the Giannis ultimate. He hits multiple people, and they keep pushing right on through for the end. I think they get another quad or 4-man kill, if not the full-on deicide, and they're able to end there.
Yeah, Zyrhoes basically just won the game for Pittsburgh Knights at the very end, because Pittsburgh Knights were in the process of sieging Rival's mid lane. They were making their way through the T2 tower. EmilZy overstepped the boundary line,
did a
though.
little bit, yeah.
Went straight into the Draconic form. Mike had an easy Terra stun set up in place for him, and EmilZy, he blows up on the spot. Doesn't get a chance to even do anything as soon as he finished transforming. But right as Rival begins pushing up, Zyrhoes comes in with the most gorgeous Giannis ult flank from inside of the speed buff from Rival's end. So there's the Chaos side speed buff, and that just clips Arkyll, and that was the end of the fight. Once your Hunter is gone, Deathwalker had the Thorns activated as well, so PandaCat was taking a lot of damage to himself, and the carries just had no chance of survival from Rival's end. Things just felt like they collapsed insanely fast for Rival here, and it's not even to any egregious fault of their own. I think that this was realistically just Pittsburgh Knights composition being disgusting in terms of objective secure and taking or killing it.
It was the objective secure for sure. Vote was a good bit ahead of Arkyll from what I could see as well too, and that was something they were able to build off very well. Plus, I'm not sure how comfortable Fineokay was on the Fenrir. A lot of his initiations, from what I could see, looked a little bit questionable, so maybe Rival weren't able to all get on the same page, but that does it for game number 3.